Welcome to Mythology Monday. So Russians are really super interesting. I don't know, I'm not an expert in Russian mythology or folk belief, as we're going to be talking about. But we're just going to read some stories. We're going to see what we see in these stories. Now, because my wife took a whole bunch of Russian classes in college and has these really great books. I have not read them all. I would like to one day. So we have folk belief, so I can do some research into here and find out why these stories have the wild elements that they have. But for the most part, we're going to be reading out of this book, Russian Fairy Tales. And I'm just going to read some stories. And they're all, for the most part, they're very short. So we'll read a story, and then we'll talk about it. And we'll go from there. There will be appearances by Baba Yaga, but I don't think we're going to get to them today, probably next time. Now, I skimmed through a few stories, and I will say we should do some content warnings, because these stories are bizarre. The book is providing feedback. Okay, well, I can move things around when like it's bouncing off of the book. That's weird. All right. I'll put the microphone over here. I'll read the book over here. So like I said, I started looking through some of these stories. They're really weird. There's violence. There's, I guess what you would call misogyny. It's weird. It's odd, but it's fun. Okay, so we're gonna... The electromagnetic energy from these crazy tales is affecting it. Okay, well, the microphone's over here. Book is over here. So hopefully we have enough distance between them. All right, so let's get started. I'm not going to read the first story because it's basically about beating your wife when she does something bad. So I'm going to skip that one. We're going to go on to the Fox Physician. And again, a lot of these have to do with animals. Animals who are smart, animals who talk. And we'll talk a little bit later about what that means and why. Once upon a time, there was an old man who lived with his old wife. The husband planted a head of cabbage in the cellar, and the wife planted one in an ash bin. The old woman's cabbage withered away completely, but the old man's grew and grew till it reached the floor above the cellar. Then the old man took an axe and cut a hole right over the cabbage. Again, the cabbage grew and grew until it reached the ceiling. Again, the old man took an axe and cut a hole right above the cabbage. Again, the cabbage grew and grew until it reached the sky. How could the old man look at the top of his cabbage now? He climbed and climbed up the stalk until he reached the sky, cut a hole in the sky, and climbed out there. He looked about him. Millstones were standing all around. Whenever they gave a turn, a cake and a slice of bread with sour cream and butter appeared, and on top of these a pot of gruel. The old man ate and drank his fill and lay down to sleep. When he had slept enough, he climbed down to the ground and said, Old woman! Old woman! What a good life one leads in heaven! There are millstones there. Each time they turn, one finds a cake, a slice of bread with sour cream and butter, and on top a pot of gruel. How can I get there, old man? Sit in the bag, old woman. I will carry you there. The old woman thought for a while, then seated herself in the bag. The old man took the bag in his teeth and began to climb to heaven. He climbed and climbed. He climbed for a long time. The old woman grew weary and asked, Is it still far, old man? It's still far, old woman. I don't know how he talked with his mouth full of holding this bag. Again he climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed. Is it still far, old man? Still halfway to go. And again he climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed. The old woman asked for a third time, Is it still far, old man? He was about to say, Not far, when the bag dropped out of his teeth. The old woman fell to the ground and was smashed to bits. The old man climbed down the stalk and picked up the bag, but in it there were only bones, and even they were broken into little pieces. The old man set out for home, weeping bitterly. On his way he met a fox, and she asked him, Why are you weeping, old man? How can I help weeping? My old woman has been smashed to pieces. Be quiet. I will heal her. The old man threw himself at the fox's feet. "Heal her! I will give you anything you ask in return." "Well, heat up a bath, put out a bag of oatmeal and a crock of butter, and put the old woman beside it, and stand behind the door, but don't look in." The old man heated a bath, brought what was called for, and stood behind the door. The fox entered the bathhouse, latched the door, and began to wash the old woman's bones. Actually, she did not wash them so much as lick them clean. From behind the door the old man called, "How is the old woman?" "She is stirring," answered the fox. She finished eating the old woman, gathered the bones together, piled them up in a corner, and began to prepare a hasty pudding. The old man waited and finally called, "How is the old woman?" "She is sitting up," answered the fox, and spooned up the rest of the pudding. When she had finished eating, she said, "Old man, open the door wide." He opened it, and the fox leapt out of the bathhouse and ran home. The old man entered the bathhouse and looked around. All he found of his old wife were her bones under the bench, and even they were licked clean. The oatmeal and the butter were gone. The old man remained alone in his misery. The end. Story number 1. And I love that that story is called The Fox Physician. Yeah, so we're going to see wily animals that talk. We're going to see... what a lovely story. We're going to see people, a lot of suffering in these stories. And, yeah. Next story. The Death of the Cock. A hen and a cock were walking in the priest's barnyard. Suddenly, the cock began to choke on a bean. The hen was sorry for him, so she went to the river to ask for some water. The river answered, "Go to the lime tree and ask for a leaf. Then I will give you some water." The hen went to the lime tree. Lime tree, give me a leaf. I will take it to the river, and the river will give me water. I will take the water to the cock, who is choking on a bean. He cannot breathe, and he cannot sneeze. He's lying like one dead. The lime tree answered, "Go to the dairymaid and ask for some thread. Then I will give you a leaf." The hen went to the dairymaid. Dairymaid, give me some thread. I will take it to the lime tree, and it will give me a leaf. I will take the leaf to the river, and the river will give me water. I will take the water to the cock, who is choking on a bean. He cannot breathe, and he cannot sneeze. He is lying like one dead. The dairymaid answered, "Go to the cow and ask for some milk. Then I will give you the thread." Okay, so then it goes on. It's going to repeat the whole thing. And then the cow answered, "Go to the mowers and ask them for some hay. Then I will give you the milk." The hen went to the mowers. Mowers, give me some hay. Blah, 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 the whole thing. The mowers answered, "Go to the smiths. Bid them forge a scythe. Then I will give you the hay." The hen went to the smiths. Smiths, forge me a scythe. I will take it to the mowers, who will give me some hay. I will take the hay to the cow, who will give me some milk. I will take the milk to the dairymaid, who will give me some thread. I will take the thread to the lime tree, and it will give me a leaf. I will take the leaf to the river, and the river will give me water. I will take the water to the cock, who is choking on a bean. He cannot breathe, and he cannot sneeze. He is lying like one dead. The smiths answered, "Go to the lions, the inhabitants near the river Laya, and ask for some coal. Then we will forge you a scythe." The hen went to the lions. Lions, give me some coal. I will take it to the smiths, who will forge a scythe. I will take the scythe to the mowers, who will give me some hay. I will take the hay to the cow, who will give me some milk. I will take the milk to the dairymaid, who will give me some thread. I will take the thread to the lime tree, who will give me a leaf. I will take the leaf to the river, and the river will give me water. I will take the water to the cock, who is choking on a bean. He cannot breathe, and he cannot sneeze. He is lying like one dead. The lions gave her some coal. The hen took the coal to the smiths, and the smiths forged her a scythe. She took the scythe to the mowers, and the mowers mowed some hay for her. She took the hay to the cow, and the cow gave her some milk. She took the milk to the dairymaid, and the dairymaid gave her some thread. She took the thread to the lime tree, and the lime tree gave her a leaf. She took the leaf to the river, and the river gave her some water. She took the water to the cock, but he was lying there quite still, neither panting nor breathing. He had choked to death on a bean. The end. So also, we see there's definitely, I guess, like, futility might be the theme of these stories. Hey, Peg Junk. Okay, so just in those first stories, no matter what you do, it doesn't help. Nothing makes anything better. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the moral of the story, I don't know. But let's keep going. Let's see if we can learn morals from all these stories together. Oh, this one looks good. The Castle of the Fly. A fly built a castle, a tall and mighty castle. There came to the castle the crawling louse. Who's in the castle? Who's in your house? Said the crawling louse. I, the languishing fly, and who art thou? I'm the crawling louse. Then came to the castle the leaping flea. Who is in the castle? Said the leaping flea. I, the languishing fly, and I, the crawling louse. Who art thou? I'm the leaping flea. Oh yes, we also see lots of repetition and just like adding a little bit of elements here and there. Yeah, both of our nerdy friends there. Yeah, I think you're both right. Then came to the castle the mischievous mosquito. Who's in the castle? And the mischievous mosquito, or said the mischievous mosquito, I, the languishing fly, and I, the crawling louse, and I, the leaping flea. Who art thou? I am the mischievous mosquito. Then came to the castle the murmuring mouse. I, the languishing fly, I, the crawling louse, and I, the leaping flea, and I, the mischievous mosquito. Who art thou? I'm the murmuring mouse. Then came to the castle the wriggly lizard. Who's in the castle? Said the wriggly lizard. I, the languishing fly, and I, the crawling louse, and I, the leaping flea, and I, the mischievous mosquito, and I, the murmuring mouse. Who art thou? I'm the wriggling lizard. We'll skip over some of this stuff. Then came to the castle Patricia Fox. Then came to the castle High Jump the Hare. I'm High Jump the Hare. Then came to the castle Wolf Greytail. So at least we do see a progression here. They're larger and larger creatures. Then came to the castle Bear Thicklegs. Who's in the castle? Said Bear Thicklegs. I, the languishing fly, and I, the crawling louse, and I, the leaping flea, and I, the mischievous mosquito, and I, the murmuring mouse, and I, the wriggly lizard, and I, Patricia Fox, and I, High Jump the Hare, and I, Wolf Greytail. Who art thou? I'm Rumbling Thunder. I'll tumble you under. I'm Bear Thicklegs. And he laid his thick paw on the castle and smashed it. The end. The end. Yeah. Futility. Just everything is bad. Everything is terrible. Yeah, I mean it's kind of wild. But yeah, lots and lots of repetitions. Obviously some of these would be a lot more sing-songy to tell to children, but still pretty wild. Okay, this one's good. The turnip. There's always a bigger fish. That's true. Grandfather planted a turnip. The time came to pick it. He took hold of it and pulled, but he couldn't pull it out. Grandfather called grandmother. Grandmother pulled grandfather, and grandfather pulled the turnip. They pulled, but they couldn't pull it out. Then their granddaughter came. She pulled grandma. Grandma pulled grandpa. Grandpa pulled the turnip. They pulled, but they couldn't pull it out. Then the puppy came. He pulled the granddaughter. She pulled grandma. Grandma pulled grandpa. Grandpa pulled the turnip. They all pulled, but they couldn't pull it out. Then a beetle came. The beetle pulled the puppy pulled the granddaughter pulled the grandma pulled the grandpa pulled the turnip. They pulled and pulled, but they couldn't pull it out. Then came a second beetle. The second beetle pulled the first beetle pulled the puppy pulled the granddaughter, she pulled grandma pulled grandpa pulled the turnip. They pulled and they pulled, they couldn't pull it. Repeat. Oh, and then this one actually has in parentheses, repeated for a third beetle and a fourth beetle. Then the fifth beetle came. I've heard that before. He pulled the fourth beetle pulled the third pulled the second pulled the first pulled the puppy pulled the granddaughter, she pulled grandma pulled grandpa pulled the turnip. They pulled and they pulled out the turnip. The end. Now, at least that one has a happy ending. They finally got that turnip. So I guess it's teamwork. So a little bit more positive than the other ones we've seen. Yeah, there was a lot of pulling going on. Now, one of the things that I know, right? Like, you'd think that, like, then they all died. Then they all died or something. That would have been a more expected ending. So one of the things that we haven't seen yet, but we'll see here a little bit, is there's a lot of talk in Russian folk belief. A lot of it comes through, there were like these old stories, but sometimes you are the turnip. That's good. Christianity came into Russia pretty early on with all of this stuff. So we'll see some elements of that in these stories where they're trying to reconcile folk belief and Christianity at the same time. And how do you do that? And that's a challenge. So next up is the hen. And this one is written more like a poem, but right, yeah, like I said, we haven't seen any sort of Christian elements thus far. Okay. There's some weird language in some of these, but I'm just going to read it and... Right, Aaron, is like every 10th story, there's something positive. It gives you just a glimmer. The hen. In grandmother's yard lived a speckled hen. She laid an egg one day. The egg rolled down from shelf to shelf, and in the end it found itself in a little keg of aspen wood, away in a corner under a bench. A mouse ran by too near the keg, wiggled his tail, and broke the egg. At this great catastrophe, an old cripple began to cry. An ugly crone let out a sigh. A startled chicken rose to fly. The gatepost shrieked, all doors creaked. The swill tub leaked. The priest's daughter, carrying water, broke her buckets. All in a dither, she came to her mother and said, "Mother, mother, have you heard the news? In grandmother's yard lived a speckled hen. She laid an egg today. The egg rolled down from shelf to shelf, and in the end it found itself in a little keg of aspen wood, away in a corner under a bench. A mouse ran by too near the keg, wiggled his tail, and broke the egg. At this great catastrophe, an old cripple began to cry. An ugly crone let out a sigh. A startled chicken rose to fly. The gatepost shrieked. All doors creaked. The swill tub leaked. And I, your daughter, carrying water, broke my buckets. The wife of the priest dropped her yeast, and her precious dough fell to the floor. She headed straight through the churchyard gate and said, "Husband, husband, have you heard the news? In grandmother's yard lived a speckled hen. She laid an egg today. The egg rolled down from shelf to shelf, and in the end it found itself in a little keg of aspen wood, away in a corner under a bench. A mouse ran by too near the keg, wiggled his tail, and broke the egg. At this great catastrophe, an old cripple began to cry. An ugly crone let out a sigh. A startled chicken rose to fly. The gatepost shrieked. All doors creaked. The swill tub leaked. Our dear daughter, carrying water, broke her buckets, and I, your wife, dropped my dough to the floor." The Holy Father, with a terrible look, tore the pages out of his book and scattered them on the floor. The end. Yeah. So there. Let's see, I'm going to skip the really long ones. Yeah, sometimes, well, oftentimes the ends are like, and then that's what happened. They can't all be bangers. Okay, this is Foma and Erema, the two brothers. And again, I'm not sure on the translation or the pronunciation, but we'll go with it. Oh, Foma and Erema, two brothers they were, alike in body, alike in mind, alike their noses, their eyes, their hair. Oh, two such brothers you'll seldom find. One day the two went to church to pray, one in a pew, the other at the altar. Erema took hymnal, Foma took psalter, Emma recited and Foma prayed, and this was heard by the priests who stayed on hilltops, learned priests devout, who came to church and kicked them out. One out the window and one out the door, and they hastened away for evermore. They went to the woods where later they met, and there they decided gray rabbits to get. Gray rabbits, fast runners, and to kill, but none they could find in hollow or hill. Instead they went to the river banks steep, where waters run deep. Two ducks a-swimming they saw down below. One duck was white, the other like snow. Erema took stick, and Foma grasped knife. Each was longing to take a duck's life. But Foma threw far, Erema too near, and the ducks swam away from there. The brothers then thought to catch some fish. To catch some fish was now their wish. Oh, Erema sat in a deep-bottomed boat, but the boat had no floor and would not float. And Foma did sit him down in a barge that had no bottom but was very large. 3 years they sank but could not drown. 3 devils in vain tried to pull them down. The brothers now wished their bodies to feed. To feed their bodies was now their need. They made up their minds to plow their fields, to take whatever the good earth yields. To market went Foma, Erema to fair. A foal and a colt the brothers bought there. Erema's colt refused to work, and Foma's foal his tasks did shirk. The brothers then slew their horses, they say, and from the fields, oh, quickly away. The end. Well, we got some rhyming, so that's neat. And again, it's sort of like I hesitate to say a comedy, but a comedy of errors. These two brothers, everything they try to do, they fail. Yeah, which does happen. Yes, fatalistic is definitely a good word for all of this. Yeah, you gotta think in like in a freezing winter night, people huddled around a fire, telling these tales, and like and it's like, okay, kids, time to go to bed. Yes, John, exactly. A bunch of dark jokes with no punchline, and go to bed. Yay! Yes, Aridinsk. They were sinking for 3 years. Okay. The just reward. We'll see if it's just. Not a lot of this so far has felt just, the results for these characters. The king of a certain country lost his ring while on a drive through his capital. He at once placed a notice in the newspapers promising that whoever might find and return the ring would receive a large reward in money. A simple private was lucky enough to find it. What shall I do? Thought the soldier. If I report my find at regimental headquarters, the whole affair will be referred to my superiors, each in his turn, from the sergeant to the company commander, from the company commander to the battalion commander, from the battalion commander to the colonel, and from the colonel to the brigadier general. There will never be an end to it. I would rather go straight to the king. He came to the palace. An officer on guard asked him, "What do you want here?" "I have found the king's ring," said the soldier. "Very well, brother. I will announce you, but only on condition that I get half the reward that the king gives you." The soldier thought to himself, "For once in my life I have had a piece of luck, and now I have to share it?" However, he answered the officer on guard, "Very well, I agree. Only give me a note stating that half the reward is for you and half for me." The officer gave him the note and announced him to the king. The king praised the soldier for having found the ring. "Thank you, brave soldier," he said. "I shall give you 2,000 rubles as a reward." "No, your royal majesty, that is not a soldier's reward. A soldier's reward is 200 lashes. "What a fool you are," said the king, and ordered that the sticks be brought in. The soldier began to undress, unbuttoned his tunic, and the note dropped on the floor. "What paper is that?" asked the king. "Your majesty, that is the note stating that only half the reward is for me, and that the other half must go to the officer on guard." The king laughed, called the officer on guard, and ordered that he be given 100 lashes. The order was carried out, and when it was time to count the last 10 lashes, the soldier drew near the king and said, "Your majesty, since he is so greedy, I will give the other half of the reward to him too." "How kind you are," said the king, and ordered that the officer on guard be given the second 100 lashes. After this reward, the officer could hardly crawl home. As for the soldier, the king gave him an honorable discharge from the service and presented him with 3,000 rubles. The end. Well, there we go. That one actually has a happy ending for the main character. Yeah, chain of command will get you every time. Every time. And the Weasley guard got severely punished. So that one you could genuinely say there is a moral to the story to be clever. I mean, as a lot of stories have. And don't be greedy. And things worked out okay. All right. Yes, and of course, for being humble, you get the reward. Yes. We're going to skip a long one called Salt. Ooh, and we're going to read about the Golden Slipper. That sounds fun. So yeah, we heard mentions about some like generic devils, but I know that devils and spirits and things appear in some of these stories. I'm sure we'll see more as we go on. Oh, and there are also some really cool names later. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Yes. Okay, the Golden Slipper. An old man and his old wife had 2 daughters. Once the old man went to town and bought a fish for the elder sister and a fish for the younger sister. The elder sister ate her fish, but the younger one went to the well and said, "Little mother fish, what shall I do with you?" "Do not eat me," said the fish, "but put me in the water. I will be useful to you." The maiden dropped the fish into the well and went home. Now the old woman had a great dislike for her younger daughter. She dressed the elder daughter in her best clothes, made ready to take her to mass, and gave the younger one 2 measures of rye, ordering her to husk it before their return from church. Why did she not like her youngest daughter? It doesn't say. The young girl went to fetch water. She sat on the edge of the well and wept. The fish swam to the surface and asked her, "Why do you weep, lovely maiden?" "How can I help weeping?" answered the maiden. "My mother has dressed my sister in her best clothes and gone with her to mass, but she left me home and ordered me to husk 2 measures of rye before her return from church." The fish said, "Weep not. Dress and go to church. The rye will be husked." The maiden dressed and went to mass. Her mother did not recognize her. Toward the end of the mass, the girl went home. Very soon her mother too came home and said, "Well, you ninny, did you husk the rye?" "I did," the daughter answered. "What a beauty we saw at mass," her mother went on. "The priest neither chanted nor read, but looked at her all the time. Just look at you, you ninny, see how you're dressed." I wasn't there, but I know all about it, answered the maiden. How could you know? Asked her mother. The next day, the mother dressed her elder daughter in her best clothes and went with her to Mass and left 3 measures of barley for the younger one, saying, While I pray to God, you husk the barley. So she went to Mass, and her younger daughter went to fetch water at the well. She sat down at the well and wept. The fish swam to the surface and asked, Why do you weep, lovely maiden? How can I help weeping? The maiden answered, My mother has dressed my sister in her best clothes, taken her to Mass. She left me at home, blah, 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 blah. The fish said, Weep not, dress and go to church after her. The barley will be husked. The maiden dressed, went to church, and began to pray to God. The priest neither chanted nor read, but looked at her all the time. That day the king's son was attending Mass. Our beautiful maiden pleased him tremendously, and he wanted to know whose daughter she was. So he took some pitch and threw it under her golden slipper. The slipper remained when the girl went home. I will marry her whose slipper this is, said the young prince. Soon the old woman too came home. What a beauty was there, she said. The priest neither chanted nor read, but all the time looked at her. And just look at you, what a tatterdemalion you are. In the meantime, the prince was traveling from one district to another, seeking the maiden who had lost her slipper, but he could not find anyone whom it fitted. He came to the old woman and said, Call your young daughter hither. I want to see whether the slipper fits her. My daughter will dirty the slipper, answered the old woman. The maiden came, and the king's son tried the slipper on her. It fitted. He married her, and they lived happily and prospered. I drank beer at their wedding. It ran down my lips, but never went into my mouth. I was given a flowing robe to wear, but a raven flew over me and cawed, Flowing robe! Flowing robe! I thought he was crying, Throw the robe, so I threw it away. I asked for a cap, but received a slap. I was given red slippers, but the raven flew over me and cawed, Red slippers! Red slippers! I thought he was crying, Robbed slippers, so I threw them away. The end. What? Just when you think that one of these stories is going to end and make sense, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it turns into, suddenly it's a first-person narration about the horrors of listening to animals at a wedding. What if there's a bad translation? I don't know. I mean, apparently this is it was a textbook in a class, again, that my wife took at UCLA. I don't know. Hold on. Let's see. What is the information about this book? I did forget to check that out. This book was first published in 1945. There's no information at the beginning. There's a whole bunch of appendices and notes in the back. I don't know. We'll get to that. Yeah, don't listen to don't listen to ravens. Oh, okay. This one should be good. Yeah, I don't know if like any of these stories are actually connected and you can track maybe animals through them. Okay, next we have Amelia the Simpleton. Once there were 3 brothers, to whom 2 were wise, and the third a simpleton. The wise brothers went to buy merchandise in the towns and told the simpleton, Now mind, simpleton, obey our wives and respect them as you would your own mother. We shall buy you red boots, a red caftan, and a red shirt in return. I guess he really liked red. The simpleton said, Very well, I will respect them. Having thus instructed the simpleton, the brothers went to the towns, and the simpleton lay down on the stove and stayed there. His sisters-in-law said to him, What are you doing, simpleton? Your brothers told you to respect us and promised to bring you gifts in return. but you are lying on the stove and doing no work at all. At least go and fetch water. That makes sense. The red being, more expensive as a dyed fabric. The simpleton took the pails and went to fetch water. Zardoz, there's only 2 pages more, so hold that thought. He drew water and a pike got into one of those pails. The simpleton said, "Thanks be to God! Now I shall cook this pike, I shall eat my fill, and I will not give any to my sisters-in-law, for I am angry at them." The pike said to him with the voice of a man, "Simpleton, do not eat me. Put me back into the water, and you will be happy." The simpleton asked, "What happiness will you give me?" "The happiness I will give, whatever you say will come to pass. For instance, say now, by the pike's command, by my own request, go, pails, go home by yourselves and stand in your accustomed place." As soon as the simpleton said this, the pails straightway went home and stood in their place. The sisters-in-law beheld this and marveled. "He is not a simpleton at all," they said. "He is so clever that his pails have come home by themselves and stand in their place." Then the simpleton came home and lay down on the stove. Again his sisters-in-law said to him, "Why do you lie on the stove, simpleton? We have no wood. Go and fetch wood." The simpleton took 2 axes, sat in the sled, but did not harness the horses to it. "By the pike's command, by my own request," he said, "roll, sled, into the woods." The sled rolled speedily forward as though someone were driving it with a horse. The simpleton had to drive through the town, and without a horse, he ran over so many people that it was a disaster. Everyone cried, "Stop him! Catch him!" But they could not catch him. The simpleton entered the woods, got off his sled, sat down on a tree trunk, and said, "Let one axe cut from the root, let the other axe chop wood." And the wood was chopped and loaded on the sled. The simpleton said, "Now, axe, go and cut a stick for me, so that I will have something to lift the load with." The axe cut a stick for him, the stick came and lay on the sled. The simpleton sat in the sled and drove homeward. He passed through the town, but there the people had assembled to wait for him. They caught him and began to belabor him. The simpleton said, "By the pike's command, by my own request, go, stick, and take care of this mob." The stick jumped up and set about hitting and thrashing the left to the right, till it had beaten up a great multitude of people, who fell to the ground like sheaves of grain. Thus the simpleton got rid of them and came home, stacked up the wood, and sat on the stove. Now the inhabitants of the town went to the king with a petition against him. "He should be seized," they said. "He must be lured by a stratagem. The best of all would be to promise him a red shirt, a red caftan, and red boots." The king's messenger came to the simpleton. "Go to the king," they said. "He will give you red boots, a red caftan, and a red shirt." The simpleton said, "By the pike's command, by my own request, stove, go to the king." He sat on the stove, and the stove went. The simpleton arrived at the king's. The king wanted to put him to death, but his daughter conceived a great liking for the simpleton, and began to beg her father to let her marry him. The father grew angry, wedded them, and had them both put in a barrel. Then he had the barrel covered with pitch and thrown into the sea. Not the end. For a long time the barrel sailed on the water. Finally the simpleton's wife asked him, "Make that we be thrown out on the shore." The simpleton said, "By the pike's command, by my own request, let this barrel be thrown on the shore and broken to pieces." They climbed out of the barrel, and now the simpleton's wife asked him to build some kind of hut. The simpleton said, "By the pike's command, by my own request, let a marble palace be built, and let this palace be right opposite the king's palace." All this was accomplished at once. Next morning the king saw the new palace and sent someone to find out who was living in it. As soon as he heard that his daughter was living there, he demanded that she and her husband appear before him. They came, the king forgave them, and they began to live happily together and to prosper. The end. Moral of that story? Make good wishes? It is one hell of a fish, that pike. All right, Zardoz, hit us with that joke. Well, I see what story will be next. Oh, we're definitely doing this one. We're going to do another one about pike. So, as Zardoz says, so we have 3 brothers, John, Dave, and Bob. Bob is the youngest brother and has a different mom than John and Dave. Interesting. There's a similar tale in northern Germany, but without a happy end. Huh. Yeah, and you never know with stories like these where if, like, pieces were added later or cut out. That's interesting. Okay, so Bob, different mom than John and Dave. Is that the end of the joke? I think Zarda is a 10. Okay. So Dave is talking to John one day and says, I think Bob is figuring out he's illegitimate. Fair. Ooh, we got a few in a row that look good. Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to read it, to read other versions of these stories. And obviously we had the, what is the slipper story? Is that, I was forgetting my princesses. John replies, what does him not being able to read have to do with anything? Okay, that's funny. That's not terrible. I like it. The good illegitimate versus illiterate. I get it. I gotcha. I know it's funnier when you explain it. Okay, so we just had a magic pike. Now we're going to read the pike with the long teeth. The night before... Oh, okay, got it. The night before St. John's, a pike was born in the Shexna River, a pike with teeth so long that God preserve us from any such. Shad, perch, flounder, all assembled to stare and marvel at this wonder. At the time of his birth, the water in the Shexna became agitated. A ferry boat sailing across it almost sank, and some lovely maidens who were taking a walk on the river bank scattered. Such a long-toothed pike he was, and he began to grow not by the day, but by the hour. With every day that passed, an inch was added to his size, and the pike with the long teeth began to roam about the Shexna, catching shad and perch. He would sight a shad from afar, snatch him with his teeth, and with the shad was as good as gone, only his bones crackled between the pike's long teeth. Such was the marvelous happening in the Shexna. Now what could the shad and perch do? They were very sad. If things went on like this, the pike would eat them all, wipe them out. So all the small fry gathered together and debated about how to get rid of that ravenous pike with the long teeth. To the meeting also came Perchson, who held forth in a loud voice, "Stop pondering, racking your wits, and cudgeling your brains. Listen to what I have to say. All of us in the Shexna are now sorely tried. The pike with all the long teeth gives us no rest. He gobbles up all kinds of fish. There's no life for us any more in the Shexna. Let us move to smaller rivers, to the Sisma, the Konoma, and the Slavenka. There no one will bother us, and we'll live happily and beget children." So all the shad, flounder, and perch left the Shexna for the smaller rivers, for the Sisma, the Konoma, and the Slavenka. On the way, as they swam, a cunning fisherman caught many of them on his line. He cooked a savory fish soup, and, it appears, ate it on a fast day. From that time on, almost no small fry has been found in the Shexna. A fisherman can cast his line into the water and pull out nothing. Once in a while, he gets a little sterlet, nothing else. And that is the whole story of the ravenous pike with the long teeth. That rascal caused a lot of trouble in the Shexna, but later he came to a bad end himself. When there was no small fry left, he went after worms and got caught on a hook. The fisherman made a fish soup out of him, ate it, and praised it highly, for the flesh of the pike was quite succulent. I was there and ate the soup with him. It ran down my mustache, but never got into my mouth. The end. What? Now, I love a good story that explains something in current times. So clearly this is a story. Why are there no small fish living in the Sheksna River? And this explains it. But also there's some fisherman dude who gobbles up all that fish, but yep, then the narrator has a problem getting it into his mouth. Why is it even in your mustache when you're trying to eat it? What the hell is his problem? I don't know. And you figured the fisherman would get into some kind of trouble eating up all those small fish on a fast day, but no, he's all right. Yeah, I don't know why there's so much eating and drinking troubles. Okay, let's see this German story. That was a very German story. Oh, The Fisherman and His Wife by the Grimm brothers. Cool. Let's see. Well, let's read this one. There was once upon a time a fisherman who lived with his wife in a pigsty close by the sea, and every day he went out fishing. And he fished, and once he was sitting with his rod, looking at the clear water, and he sat and he sat. Then his line suddenly went down, far down below, and when he drew it up again, he brought out a large flounder. Then the flounder said to him, "Hark, you fisherman, I pray you, let me live. I am no flounder really, but an enchanted prince. What good will it do you to kill me? I should not be good to eat. Put me in the water again and let me go." "Come," said the fisherman, "there is no need for so many words about it. A fish that can talk I should certainly let go anyhow." And with that he put him back in the clear water, and the flounder went to the bottom, leaving a long streak of blood behind him. Then the fisherman got up and went home to his wife in the pigsty. "Husband," said the woman, "have you caught nothing today?" "No," said the man, "I did catch a flounder, who said he was an enchanted prince, so I let him go again." "Did you not wish for anything first?" said the woman. "No," said the man, "what should I wish for?" "Ah," said the woman, "it is surely hard to have to live always in this pigsty, which stinks and is so disgusting. You might have wished for a little hut for us. Go back and call him. Tell him we want to have a little hut. He will certainly give us that." "Ah," said the man, "why should I go there again?" "Why," said the woman, "you did catch him and you let him go again. He is sure to do it. Go at once." The man still did not quite like to go, but did not like to oppose his wife either, and went to the sea. When he got there, the sea was all green and yellow and no longer smooth, so he stood still and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray thee, here to me, for my wife, good Ilsabil, wills not, and I'd have her will." Then the flounder came swimming to him and said, "Well, what does she want then?" "Ah," said the man, "I did catch you, and my wife says I really ought to have wished for something. She does not like to live in a pigsty any longer. She would like to have a hut." "Go then," said the flounder. "She has it already." When the man went home, his wife was no longer in the sty, but instead of it there stood a hut, and she was sitting on a bench before the door. Then she took him by the hand and said to him, "Just come inside. Look, now isn't this a great deal better?" So they went in. There was a small porch, and a pretty little parlor and bedroom, and a kitchen and pantry, with the best of furniture, and fitted up with the most beautiful things made of tin and brass, whatsoever was wanted. And behind the hut there was a small yard with hens and ducks, and a little garden with flowers and fruit. "Look," said the wife, "is not that nice?" "Yes," said the husband, "and so it shall remain. Now we will live quite contented." "We will think about that," said the wife. With that, they ate something and went to bed. Everything went well for a week or a fortnight, and then the woman said, "Hark, you husband, this hut is far too small for us, and the garden and yard are little. The flounder might just as well have given us a larger house. I should like to live in a great stone castle. Go to the flounder, and tell him to give us a castle." "Ah, wife," said the man, "the hut is quite good enough. Why would we live in a castle?" "What?" said the woman. "Just go there. The flounder can always do that." "No, wife," said the man. "The flounder has just given us the hut. I do not like to go back so soon. It might make him angry." "Go," said the woman. "He can do it quite easily, and will be glad to do it. Just you go to him." The man's heart grew heavy, and he would not go. He said to himself, "It is not right," and yet he went. And when he came to the sea, the water was quite purple and dark blue, and gray and thick, and no longer so green and yellow, but it was still quiet. And he stood there and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray to thee, here to me. For my wife, good Ilsebil, wills not as I'd have her will." "Well, what does she want now?" said the flounder. "Alas," said the man, half scared, "she wants to live in a great stone castle." "Go to it then. She is standing before the door," said the flounder. Then the man went away, intending to go home, but when he got there, he found a great stone palace, and his wife was just standing on the steps going in, and she took him by the hand and said, "Come in." So he went in with her, and the castle was a great hall paved with marble, and many servants, who flung wide the doors. And the walls were all bright with beautiful hangings, and in the rooms were chairs and tables of pure gold, and crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and all the rooms and bedrooms had carpets, and food and wine of the very best were standing on all the tables, so that they nearly broke beneath it. Behind the house, too, there was a great courtyard with stables for horses and cows, and the very best of carriages. There was a magnificent large garden, too, with the most beautiful flowers and fruit trees, and a park quite half a mile long, in which were stags, deers, hares, and everything that could be desired. "Come," said the woman, "isn't that beautiful?" "Yes, indeed," said the man. "Now let it be, and we will live in this beautiful castle and be content." "We will consider about that," said the woman, "and sleep on it." Thereupon they went to bed. Next morning the wife awoke first, and it was just daybreak, and from her bed she saw the beautiful country lying before her. Her husband was still stretching himself, so she poked him in the side with her elbow and said, "Get up, husband. Just peep out that window. Look you, couldn't we be the king over all that land? Go to the flounder. We will be the king." "Ah, wife," said the man, "why should we be king? I do not want to be king." "Well," said the wife, "if you won't be king, I will. Go to the flounder, for I will be king." "Ah, wife," said the man, "why do you want to be king? I do not like to say that to him." "Why not?" said the woman. "Go to him this instant. I must be king." So the man went and was quite unhappy because his wife wished to be king. "It is not right, it is not right," thought he. He did not wish to go, but yet he went. And when he came to the sea, it was quite dark gray, and the water heaved up from below and smelt putrid. Then he went and stood by it and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray thee, here to me. For my wife, good Ilsebil, wills not as I'd have her will." "Well, what does she want now?" said the flounder. "Alas," said the man, "she wants to be king." "Go to her. She is king already." So the man went, excuse me, and when he came to the palace, the castle had become much larger, and had a great tower and magnificent ornaments, and the sentinel was standing before the door, and there were numbers of soldiers with kettle drums and trumpets. And when he went inside the house, everything was of real marble and gold, with velvet covers and great golden tassels. Then the doors of the hall were opened, and there was the court in all its splendor, and his wife was sitting on the high throne of gold and diamonds, with a great crown of gold on her head, and a scepter of pure gold and jewels in her hand. And on both sides of her stood her maids in waiting in a row, each of them always one head shorter than the last. Boop, 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 boop. Then he went and stood before her and said, "Ah, wife, and now you are king." "Yes," said the woman, "now I am king." So he stood and looked at her, and when he had looked at her thus for some time, he said, "And now that you are king, let all else be. Now we will wish for nothing more." "No, husband," said the wife quite anxiously. "I find time passes quite heavily. I can bear it no longer. Go to the flounder. I am king, but I must be emperor too." "Oh, wife, why do you wish to be emperor?" "Husband," said she, "go to the flounder. I will be emperor." "Alas, wife," said the man, "he cannot make you emperor. I may not say that to the fish. There is only one emperor in the land. An emperor the flounder cannot make you. I assure you he cannot." "What?" said the woman. "I am the king, and you are nothing but my husband. Will you go this moment? Go at once. If he can make a king, he can make an emperor. I will be emperor. Go instantly." So he was forced to go. As the man went, however, he was troubled in mind and thought to himself, "It will not end well." No kidding. It will not end well. Emperor is too shameless. The flounder will at last be tired out. With that, he reached the sea, and the sea was quite black and thick, and began to boil up from below, so that it threw up bubbles. And such a sharp wind blew over it, that it curdled, and the man was afraid. Then he stood by it and said, "Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray thee, here to me, for my wife, good Ilsebil, wills not, as I'd have her will." "Well, what does she want now?" said the flounder. "Alas, flounder," said he, "my wife wants to be emperor." "Go to her," said the flounder. "She is emperor already." So the man went, and when he got there, the whole palace was made of polished marble, with alabaster figures and golden ornaments, and soldiers were marching before the door, blowing trumpets and beating cymbals and drums. And in the house, barons and counts and dukes were going about as servants. Then they opened the doors to him, which were of pure gold. And when he entered, there sat his wife on a throne, which was made of one piece of gold, and was quite 2 miles high. And she wore a great golden crown that was 3 yards high, and set with diamonds and carbuncles. And in one hand she had the scepter, and the other the imperial orb. And on both sides of her stood the yeomen of the guard in 2 rows, each being smaller than the one before him, from the biggest giant, who was 2 miles high, to the very smallest dwarf, just as big as my little finger. And before it stood a number of princes and dukes. Then the man went and stood among them and said, "Wife, are you emperor now?" "Yes," said she, "now I am emperor." Then he stood and looked at her well, and when he had looked at her thus for some time, said, "Ah, wife, be content now that you are emperor." "Husband," said she, "why are you standing there? Now I am emperor, but I will be pope too. Go to the flounder." "Oh, wife," said the man, "what will you not wish for? You cannot be pope. There is but one in Christendom. He cannot make you pope." "Husband," said she, "I will be pope. Go immediately. I will be pope this very day." "No, wife," said the man, "I do not like to say that to him. That would not do. It is too much. The flounder can't make you pope." "Husband," said she, "what nonsense! If he can make an emperor, he can make a pope. Go to him directly. I am emperor, and you are nothing but my husband. Will you go at once?" Then he was afraid and went, but he was quite faint, and shivered and shook, and his knees and legs trembled. And a high wind blew over the land, and the clouds flew, and toward evening all grew dark, and the leaves fell from the trees, and the water rose and roared as it was boiling, and splashed upon the shore. And in the distance he saw ships which were firing guns in their sore need, pitching and tossing on the waves, and yet in the midst of the sky there was still a small patch of blue, though on every side of it was red as in a heavy storm. So full of despair he went and stood in much fear and said, Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray thee, here to me. For my wife, good Ilsebil, wills not as I'd have her will. Well, what does she want now? Said the flounder. Alas, said the man, she wants to be Pope. Go to her then, said the flounder. She is Pope already. So he went, and when he got there, he saw what seemed to be a large church surrounded by palaces. He pushed his way through the crowd. Inside, however, everything was lighted up with thousands and thousands of candles, and his wife was clad in gold, and she was sitting on a much higher throne and had 3 great golden crowns on, and around her there was much ecclesiastical splendor. And on both sides of her was a row of candles, and largest of which was as tall as the very tallest tower, down to the very smallest kitchen candle, and all the emperors and kings were on their knees before her, kissing her shoe. Wife, said the man, and looked attentively at her, are you now Pope? Yes, said she, I am Pope. So he stood and looked at her, and it was just as if he was looking at the bright sun. When he had stood looking at her thus for a short time, he said, Ah, wife, if you are Pope, do let well alone. But she looked as stiff as a post, and did not move or show any signs of life. Then said he, Wife, now that you are Pope, be satisfied. You cannot become anything greater now. I will consider about that, said the woman. Thereupon they both went to bed, but she was not satisfied, and greediness let her have no sleep, for she was continually thinking about what was left for her to be. The man slept well and soundly, for he had run about a great deal during the day. But the woman could not fall asleep at all, and flung herself from one side to the other the whole night through, thinking always what more was left for her to be, but unable to call to mind anything else. At length the sun began to rise, and when the woman saw the red of dawn, she sat up in bed and looked at it. And when through the window she saw the sun thus rising, she said, Cannot I too order the sun and moon to rise? Husband, she said, poking him in the ribs with her elbow, wake up, go to the flounder, for I wish to be even as God is. The man was half asleep, but he was still so horrified that he fell out of bed. He thought he must have heard amiss, rubbed his eyes, and said, Wife, what are you saying? Husband, said she, if I can't order the sun and moon to rise, and have to look on and see the sun and moon rising, I can't bear it. I shall not know what it is to have another happy hour, unless I can make them rise myself. Then she looked at him so terribly that a shudder ran over him, and said, Go at once. I wish to be like unto God. Alas, wife, said the man, falling on his knees before her, the flounder cannot do that. He can make an emperor and a pope. I beseech you, go on as you are, and be Pope. Then she fell into a rage, and her hair flew wildly about her head. She tore open her bodice, kicked him with her foot, and screamed, I can't stand it! I can't stand it any longer. Will you go this instant? Then he put on his trousers and ran away like a madman. But outside a great storm was raging and blowing so hard that he could scarcely keep his feet. Houses and trees toppled over, the mountains trembled, rocks rolled into the sea, the sky was pitch black, and it thundered and lightened, and the sea came in with black waves as high as church towers and mountains, and all with crests of white foam at the top. Then he cried, but he could not hear his own words, Flounder, flounder in the sea, come, I pray to thee, here to me, for my wife, good Ilsebil, wills not as I would have her will. Well, what does she want now? Said the flounder. Alas, said he, she wants to be like unto God. Go to her, and you will find her back in the pigsty, and there they are still living to this day. The end. Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely quite quite greedy. And that's a cool turn at the end, which I suppose you could go into about what it means to be like unto God, right? What does that mean? Does that mean living in a palace and being lord over everything? Or does that mean a humble existence? Is that what the point is? You know, I love the imagery of the water being polluted as things get crazier and crazier. That's a cool story. Are there? I'll have to look around and see if there's what more is on this site. That's very interesting. Obviously, the Brothers Grimm have some very, very interesting tales, and not all exactly the way people remember them from popular culture. Yeah, no, definitely a simpleton husband wishing things from a fish. Yeah, lots of definitely from the same family of stories at least. Cool. So I think we'll continue. I'm enjoying these stories. Hopefully you all are as well. So we'll continue with more next time. I'll try to do a little bit more research into why these stories are the way they are. But I think they're very interesting. This week, as it stands now, there will not be Dune today on Jessica's channel later on this afternoon. She's doing a bit of a different schedule this week. Not her normal schedule. So stay tuned, pay attention to her posts and tweets and look for that. I'm going to have my normal-ish schedule this week. Toys tomorrow, as normal. Warhammer Wednesday, as normal. Nothing on Thursday, and then Figure Friday, so the normal stuff. And then we'll have, I think, right? I think I'm... Yeah, Friday's New Year's Day, but I mean, what else are we doing? Normal schedule for the rest of the week for me. Thank you, everyone who hung out and listened to me read some crazy stories. Yeah, they're pretty wild. My family, a large chunk of my genealogy comes from Russia, way generations back, not recently. So it is interesting reading some of these stories in that way. As I said when we were in Janelle's stream talking about ancestry stuff, and it was like, well, I could go do one of those ancestry things, but I think we'd just come back and say 100% Eastern European and goodbye. My family is all originally from Russia and Hungary and a little bit of Romania and stuff like that, but it's pretty much where everybody's from. Okay, let's go see what John is working on. The cool places, yeah. Come on. All right, John is working on some cool stuff. Looks like he's building something. We will find out. Yes, 3 generations back. Thank you, Mom. Have a good day, everybody. Hopefully I'll see you back tomorrow for Toys on a Tuesday. And I think that's it. Okay, go say hi to John and have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.